CEO laughed at the waitress, then froze when her fluent Arabic saved his business from bankruptcy. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a brisk Tuesday afternoon in New York City, the kind where the hustle and bustle of Manhattan seemed to swallow you whole. The crisp air cut through the streets, and inside one of the most prestigious restaurants in the city, the atmosphere was no different. At a corner table, Jack Anderson, a billionaire tech mogul, sat surrounded by papers, his eyes glued to the documents in front of him. His fingers drummed on the tabletop in impatience, a sign of someone used to having everything at his disposal, including people. His phone buzzed, but he ignored it, too caught up in his calculations. At the same time, Christina Matthews, a young waitress, moved quietly between tables, her uniform immaculate, her eyes focused, doing her job with an ease that belied the chaos around her. A quiet woman with an intelligence that many had overlooked, Christina had learned to keep to herself. No one noticed her much, until today. As Jack looked up briefly, his sharp eyes scanned the room. He spotted her immediately. She was standing by the counter, adjusting the coffee cups, her delicate fingers moving with precision, a stark contrast to the loud, powerful figures around him. Jack had made a name for himself by reading people. He could tell a lot by the way someone held themselves, how they spoke, or didn't speak. But this waitress? She intrigued him, even if he didn't want to admit it. His thoughts were interrupted as he raised his hand, signaling her to approach. He couldn't help but make a casual remark. "I'll have the steak, medium rare. And you? How do you like to spend your time, miss?" Christina, maintaining her professional demeanor, replied with a soft smile. "I don't believe that's on our menu, sir." A light chuckle escaped his lips. "Oh, I wasn't asking about the menu. I meant, surely someone like you must have dreams beyond serving meals, right?" It was the kind of condescending comment Jack had made many times before, but this time something about Christina caught his attention. She didn't flinch, didn't react as expected. She simply looked at him, eyes steady, unwavering. "I have dreams, sir. Just not the ones you might think." His curiosity piqued. Jack smirked. "Oh, and what are those dreams?" Christina's voice remained steady, but there was a glint in her eyes. "My dreams are simple. I want to help people in any way I can." Jack, feeling amused, leaned back in his chair. "Well, I suppose that's noble, but how do you plan to do that while serving food?" Christina didn't hesitate. "Maybe I'll help you, sir, with something bigger than just food." Jack laughed, thinking she was joking, but there was something in her tone that stopped him from dismissing her completely. As he returned to his phone, a sudden thought crossed his mind. He remembered something about an international deal he was negotiating, something with Arabic-speaking clients. He had always prided himself on being the smartest person in the room, but what if she knew something he didn't? His fingers hovered over his phone, sending a quick text to his assistant. "Make sure to look into the waitress." Jack smiled, amused at his own curiosity. He decided to test her. After a few minutes, he leaned back and, in his most casual tone, said, "I'm sure you don't understand Arabic, do you?" Christina paused, a slight smile tugging at her lips. "I understand more than you think, sir. And if you'd like, I can help you with your business negotiations." Jack's laughter died in his throat. Was she serious? Was this waitress really suggesting that she could help him? He leaned forward, studying her carefully. "You know Arabic?" Christina didn't just nod. She spoke. "In perfect Arabic. The numbers in your proposal don't add up. You're at risk of a major loss." Jack froze. His eyes widened in disbelief. How could this waitress, someone he had barely noticed until now, know so much about his business dealings? This wasn't a coincidence, he realized. Christina had just saved him from a major blunder, a mistake that could have cost him millions. Jack's heart raced as he tried to process what had just happened. The woman he had dismissed so easily had just turned the tables. She wasn't just a waitress. She was a savior in disguise. Christina stood still for a moment, her heart racing. The weight of what had just happened hung in the air. She had saved Jack Anderson from a potentially catastrophic mistake, but she couldn't quite understand why she'd spoken up. It was as if something deep inside her had pushed her to do it, even though the consequences could have been severe. She quickly turned back to her work, trying to push the thoughts out of her mind. It was just another day at the restaurant, and she needed to keep her focus on the customers. The last thing she wanted was to draw attention to herself. Meanwhile, Jack sat frozen in his chair, his mind racing. The woman, the waitress, had just spoken in flawless Arabic. Not only had she understood the complexities of his business dealings, but she had also pointed out an error that no one else had noticed. He had always prided himself on his intellect and business acumen. Yet here was someone he had dismissed as just another server, saving him from a multi-million-dollar blunder. How could he have underestimated her so badly? He quickly pulled himself together. His mind was still processing the unexpected twist, but he had learned enough from his years in business to know when to seize an opportunity. Jack had always been the kind of man who saw value where others saw nothing. And now, he saw something in Christina Matthews, something more than just a waitress. He watched her as she moved between tables, her posture graceful, her movements efficient. It was obvious she had a quiet confidence about her, something that set her apart from the others in the restaurant. There was a certain dignity in the way she carried herself, something Jack hadn't expected from someone in her position. She was not just a waitress. She was someone with a mind sharp enough to read between the lines and spot the cracks in his business deals. The more he observed her, the more he found himself intrigued. There was something about Christina that was different. Maybe it was her intelligence, her ability to keep her cool under pressure, or the fact that she had seen through his arrogant exterior so easily. Jack felt a spark of respect growing inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. In a world where everyone was trying to sell him something, Christina was the first person who hadn't tried to impress him or flatter him. She had just spoken the truth. As the evening continued, Jack couldn't stop thinking about her. He had been wrong about her. She wasn't just a waitress serving him dinner. She was someone with potential, someone who could be an asset. He needed to know more. When he finished his meal, Jack couldn't resist the urge to make a move. He reached for his phone, quickly sending a message to his assistant. "Give me a background check on Christina Matthews. I need to know everything about her." He wanted to know why someone with her level of intelligence was working in a restaurant instead of running her own business. What was she hiding? As Christina came over to drop off the check, Jack glanced up, locking eyes with her for a moment. There was a slight hesitation in her expression, as though she could sense his growing curiosity. She handed him the check, and Jack noticed a small, almost imperceptible smile on her lips as she spoke. "Your total is $325, Mr. Anderson. Would you like to add a tip?" Jack smiled back, but this time, there was no arrogance in his expression. Instead, there was a genuine interest, a curiosity about this woman who had just changed the course of his day, perhaps his life. "No, thank you," he said, his voice calm but filled with something else. "I'll take care of it." Christina nodded and turned to walk away, but Jack wasn't finished. He had one last thing to say. "Wait," he called out. She paused and turned back to him. "What's your name, Christina?" Her gaze softened for a second before she answered, her voice steady. "Christina Matthews." Jack didn't respond immediately. Instead, he picked up the pen and signed the receipt, adding a generous tip, far more than anyone would expect. As she collected it, Jack added, "I'd like to continue this conversation sometime, Christina. I think you have a lot to offer, more than you realize. I'll be in touch." Christina's eyes widened for a moment, and she glanced at the tip, clearly surprised. "Thank you, Mr. Anderson," she said softly before turning away to continue her work. Jack watched her for a moment before his eyes moved back to the paperwork in front of him. He had just made the first move in a game he wasn't sure how to play. But for the first time in a long time, he felt the rush of excitement that came with discovering something, or someone, unexpected. He was determined to find out more about Christina Matthews. As he left the restaurant, Jack couldn't help but think about what had just transpired. The waitress who had caught his attention wasn't just a waitress after all. She was something more, and he was eager to find out just how much more. The days following their brief encounter felt like an eternity for Christina. She couldn't get the conversation out of her mind, even as she carried on with her daily routine. Every time she glanced at her phone, she half expected a message from Jack Anderson, the billionaire CEO whose arrogance she had called out in the restaurant. But there was nothing. She told herself it was just one of those moments. He was probably busy with his high-powered business dealings, just like any other powerful man who didn't have time for someone like her. Still, there was something about that brief interaction that nagged at her. She had known she had made an impact on him, but would he remember her the next day? Or would she simply be another face in the crowd? Meanwhile, Jack couldn't shake the thought of Christina Matthews. Despite his attempts to focus on other things, his mind kept returning to the intelligent woman who had corrected him so easily, speaking Arabic with a level of fluency that had stunned him. He had run background checks on her, as he did with anyone who piqued his interest, but the results only left him more curious. Christina had a degree from Columbia University, and her financial acumen was undeniable. How had she ended up working as a waitress, then? Why was she hiding in plain sight? It didn't make sense. The more he learned, the more he realized how much he wanted to know about her. There was more to Christina than met the eye, and Jack wasn't about to let that go unnoticed. Jack decided to reach out. He wasn't the type to make moves like this. He was used to people coming to him. But something about Christina made him want to step out of his comfort zone. He needed to know what she was really capable of. A day later, he sent her a message. It was straightforward and professional, with just enough intrigue to spark her interest. Christina, this is Jack Anderson. I'd like to meet with you and discuss some business opportunities. If you're open to it, let's set up a time. It was simple, but it was his way of extending an olive branch. He wasn't sure what he expected her to say, but he couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement building inside him. Christina stared at the message on her phone, her fingers hovering over the screen. She hadn't expected this. Not from him. It had been a week since their encounter, and she had moved on. She had assumed that was the end of it, just a fleeting moment in time. Yet, here he was, reaching out to her. Part of her wanted to ignore the message, to keep her distance. After all, she had no interest in getting involved with a billionaire CEO who could never truly understand her world. But another part of her, the part that had longed for more, felt a stir of excitement. Could this be an opportunity? An opportunity to finally break free of the chains that had held her back for so long? She hesitated for only a moment before typing a response. Mr. Anderson, thank you for reaching out. I'm happy to discuss business. Let me know when would be a good time for you. It wasn't much, but it was enough. She hit send, and the reply was immediate. How about tomorrow at 2 p.m.? I'll send you the address. Christina felt a knot form in her stomach. She didn't know what she was getting herself into, but she couldn't back down now. She had already agreed to meet him, and she wasn't about to back out. The next day, she put on her best professional outfit, a simple but elegant black dress, and made her way to the address Jack had given her. She was nervous but determined. When she arrived, she was greeted by a well-dressed assistant who escorted her into the sleek, modern office. The building was impressive, as expected, but it was the view that took her breath away. The entire city lay before her, the skyline a testament to Jack's success. She couldn't help but feel a pang of insecurity. She wasn't used to being in places like this. Jack was waiting for her in his office, standing by the window, looking out at the city below. He turned when he heard her footsteps and smiled. Christina, thank you for coming. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Please, have a seat. She nodded and sat down, trying to maintain her composure. Jack wasted no time. I've been looking into your background, Christina. You have quite an impressive resume for someone working in a restaurant. I'm curious, why are you hiding in plain sight? His words were direct, but there was no judgment in his tone. It was almost as if he was genuinely interested in her answer. She shifted uncomfortably in her chair, unsure of how to respond. She had never been the type to share her personal life, especially not with someone like him. But she couldn't deny the fact that she was intrigued by him, too. There was something about his presence, his sharp focus, that drew her in. I've had my reasons, Christina said, her voice steady but guarded. Sometimes life takes you down paths you didn't expect. But I'm not hiding. I'm just figuring things out. Jack studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Fair enough. I can respect that. But I think you're capable of much more than you realize, Christina. That's why I want to offer you a job. I need someone with your skill set to join my team. You could be more than just a waitress. Christina felt her heart skip a beat. A job? Working for Jack Anderson? It seemed too good to be true. But there was a catch, she knew. There was always a catch. She didn't know what he expected, but she wasn't about to let herself be used. What kind of job are we talking about? She asked, keeping her voice neutral. Jack leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. I need a consultant. Someone who can think outside the box. Someone who isn't afraid to challenge the status quo. You have the kind of mind I need, Christina, and I'm willing to pay handsomely for it. Christina's mind raced. She hadn't expected this, but part of her knew this was the opportunity she had been waiting for. The question was, could she trust him? Could she trust herself to step into a world that was so different from everything she had known? Christina sat in Jack Anderson's sleek office, her mind racing with the offer he had just presented. It felt surreal. One moment, she was serving tables, blending into the background of the city's glittering elite, and the next, she was sitting across from one of the most powerful men in the business world, being offered a chance to step into a completely different life. The idea of working for Jack Anderson was both exhilarating and terrifying. She had always dreamed of breaking free from her limited circumstances, but this was more than she had ever imagined. Jack was waiting for her response, his intense gaze fixed on her as he sat back in his chair. The silence in the room felt heavy, as if the weight of his words were pressing down on her. She could feel the tension building in the air. It was clear that he believed in her abilities, but could she really take this leap? Christina shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her hands clasped tightly together in her lap. I don't know, she said, her voice soft but firm. This is a huge decision, Jack. I'm not sure if I'm ready to dive into something like this. Jack leaned forward, his expression softening slightly. I understand, but you need to know that you have something special, Christina. Your insight, your ability to see things others miss, it's rare. And I think you could do great things, both for yourself and for my company. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this new world. The idea of leaving everything behind, the simplicity of her current life, the safety of the familiar, was daunting. But there was also a part of her that couldn't ignore the fire that had been sparked. This could be the chance she had been waiting for. I'm not used to being in a position like this, Christina admitted. I've always had to fight for every opportunity. I never had anyone believing in me like this before. Jack's gaze softened even more. That's why I'm offering you this, Christina. I see potential in you that you don't even see in yourself yet. I'm not offering you a job just because I need someone to fill a role. I'm offering you a chance to prove to yourself what you're capable of. Christina took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of emotions inside her. This wasn't just about the money, though the salary he had mentioned was beyond anything she had ever imagined. It was about the opportunity to finally take control of her future. She had spent so many years in the shadows, watching others succeed, wondering if she would ever have the chance to make something of herself. Was this the moment? I need time to think about it, she said, finally making her decision. This isn't something I can jump into without being sure. It's a huge change, and I want to make sure I'm ready for it. Jack nodded, clearly understanding her hesitation. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. But just know that the offer is on the table. And when you're ready, I'll be here. The next few days passed in a blur for Christina. She couldn't stop thinking about what Jack had said. The offer, the possibility of a new life, kept running through her mind. She thought about her family, about everything she had worked for, and about how this new opportunity could change everything. She had always believed that she was meant for something bigger than waitressing, but now she was faced with the reality of what it would take to step into that new life. As the days went on, she found herself leaning closer to saying yes. She had always known that her life would take a different path one day, but she hadn't imagined it would be this bold, this fast. But then, as she sat on the subway one evening, heading back to her small apartment in Brooklyn, she received a message from Jack. It was short, but it struck a chord with her. I've been thinking about you, Christina, and I think you should know, you're capable of more than you realize. Don't hold back. The words hit her like a punch to the gut. For the first time in a long time, someone was telling her to believe in herself. Someone was seeing the value in her that she had never allowed herself to see. That night, she made her decision. She was going to take the risk. She was going to say yes. She wasn't going to let fear hold her back anymore. The next morning, she called Jack. I'm in, she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. I'm ready to take this step. Jack's voice was warm, almost relieved. That's great, Christina. I knew you had it in you. And just like that, her life began to change. The path ahead was uncertain, but Christina knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to let this chance slip through her fingers. She was ready for whatever came next. Christina's first day in her new role at Jack Anderson's company felt like stepping into another world. She had spent the last few days preparing for it, running through scenarios in her head, trying to anticipate what would happen next. But nothing could have prepared her for the reality of walking into the high-rise office building and stepping into the sleek, modern workspace that now surrounded her. The glass walls, the polished floors, the hum of productivity, everything felt so different from the world she had come from. The restaurant's cluttered kitchen and the rush of orders seemed miles away now. She felt out of place, but there was no turning back. She had made her decision. Jack greeted her as soon as she arrived, his usual confident smile on his face. "Welcome aboard, Christina. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started." His tone was professional, but there was something warmer about it now, something that told her he genuinely wanted her to succeed. Her new role was unlike anything she had ever imagined. She wasn't just a consultant in the traditional sense. Jack had a specific vision for how her skills could be utilized. He wanted her to analyze the company's financial strategies, look for weak points in their plans, and propose solutions that could help them grow even further. It was intimidating at first, but as Christina dove deeper into the work, she realized how much she enjoyed it. She was good at this. The numbers made sense to her, the patterns were clear, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she was in the right place. Over the next few weeks, Christina threw herself into the work. She spent hours poring over spreadsheets, dissecting reports, and brainstorming ideas with Jack and his team. The more she contributed, the more Jack seemed to trust her, and the more respect she earned. From her colleagues, it wasn't always easy. There were times when she felt like an outsider, when her lack of experience in the corporate world made her doubt herself. But Jack was always there, encouraging her, pushing her to be better. One afternoon, Jack called her into his office. "Christina, I've been impressed with your work so far. You've brought a fresh perspective to the team, and I think it's time for us to take things to the next level." Christina sat down across from him, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to hide the anxiety in her voice. "I want to offer you more responsibility," Jack continued. "You've proven that you can think strategically and see the bigger picture. I'm going to put you in charge of overseeing our new project in the Middle East. You'll be working directly with our partners there, handling everything from the financials to negotiations. It's a big leap, but I believe you're ready for it." Christina blinked, taken aback by the magnitude of the offer. A project in the Middle East? She had barely started to adjust to her new role, and now this? But as she looked at Jack, she saw the confidence in his eyes, and she knew this was the moment she had been waiting for. This was her chance to prove not just to Jack, but to herself, that she could handle anything. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firm despite the swirl of uncertainty in her stomach. Jack's smile widened. "I knew you'd say that. You've got the drive, Christina. Now it's time to show the world what you can do." The days that followed were a blur of preparations. Christina flew to the Middle East, where she met with the local partners and began laying the groundwork for the project. She was thrust into high-level meetings, working with people who were more experienced, more powerful, and much older than she was. At first, it was intimidating. There were moments when she felt out of her depth, unsure of how to navigate the complex cultural and business landscape. But as the days went on, she realized she was starting to gain the respect of the people around her. Her sharp mind and ability to connect the dots quickly made her a valuable asset to the team. One night, after a particularly exhausting day of meetings, Christina found herself sitting in the hotel lobby, staring out at the city lights. She felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had come so far in such a short amount of time, but there was still so much more to do. She couldn't help but think back to the first time she had met Jack, the arrogant CEO who had dismissed her as just another waitress. How different everything seemed now. As she sat there, lost in thought, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jack. "How's everything going in the Middle East?" he asked. Christina smiled to herself before replying. "It's going well. Busy but good. I'm starting to get the hang of things." "I knew you would," Jack wrote back. "I'm proud of you, Christina." The words meant more to her than she could express. She had earned Jack's respect, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. She wasn't just proving herself to Jack anymore. She was proving herself to the world. And more importantly, she was proving to herself that she could do anything. As the project in the Middle East continued to unfold, Christina's confidence grew. She was no longer the quiet waitress she had once been. She was a force to be reckoned with, someone who could navigate the high-stakes world of business with the same skill and grace she had once used to navigate the restaurant floor. And the best part? She knew she was just getting started. Christina's life had changed in ways she never imagined since that first meeting with Jack Anderson. Her role in the Middle East project was taking off, and she was quickly becoming an integral part of the team. What started as a leap of faith had turned into a series of moments that proved her worth, both to Jack and to herself. However, despite her success, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. There were moments when she would sit alone in her hotel room, the weight of the city's vastness surrounding her, and wonder if this was all she was meant to do. The high-profile meetings, the intense financial decisions, it was all so different from the life she once knew. But the more she delved into the work, the more she realized she was capable of handling it. One afternoon, after a particularly successful negotiation with one of the Middle Eastern partners, Jack called her. "Christina, I have to say, you've been exceptional," he said, his voice carrying the satisfaction of someone who had watched her grow into her role. "I never doubted you, but you've really exceeded my expectations." Christina smiled, though she felt a slight unease. "Thank you, Jack. I've been working hard, but I couldn't have done it without your guidance." "You've proven you can handle the pressure," Jack continued. "I'm impressed. In fact, I'm thinking about making a bigger move for you. How would you feel about taking on more responsibility back at headquarters? I'm looking for someone to head up the entire Middle East expansion project. You've got the skills, and I trust you to lead it." The offer was unexpected, but Christina didn't hesitate. She had always wanted to take the reins, to be in charge of something that could make a lasting impact. "I'd be honored," she replied, her voice steady. "I'm ready for it." "Good," Jack said with a tone of approval. "I'll have everything set up for you when you get back to New York. You'll be running the show, but we'll need to move quickly. There's a lot at stake." The idea of leading such a significant project was daunting, but Christina was ready. She had proven to herself that she belonged in this world. She wasn't just the quiet waitress anymore. She had transformed into someone who could make decisions that mattered, someone who had the ability to change the course of a company. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparations. Christina finished up her responsibilities in the Middle East, making sure everything was in order before she left. She met with the local teams one last time, offering them guidance and encouragement. As she boarded the flight back to New York, she felt a sense of accomplishment, but also a growing anticipation for what was to come. When she arrived at Jack's headquarters, she was introduced to the team she would be leading. They were a group of seasoned professionals, many of whom had been with the company for years. Christina's heart raced as she realized she would be taking charge of such a high-profile group. But she reminded herself that she had earned this. She had the skills, the experience, and the vision. Jack's office was sleek, modern, and intimidating. He was already there, waiting for her, his expression unreadable. "Christina," he said with a smile, standing up as she entered. "Welcome to the next phase of your career. I'm confident you'll do great things." Christina nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and nerves. "Thank you, Jack. I'm ready." "I know you are," Jack said, his eyes gleaming with the same intensity that had driven him to success. "Now let's get to work." Over the next few weeks, Christina worked tirelessly to get the Middle East expansion project off the ground. She held meetings with investors, collaborated with the local teams, and navigated the complex logistics of the project. It was overwhelming at times, but she felt a rush of satisfaction every time she closed a deal or solved a problem. She was building something real, something that could change the course of the company. However, as the pressure mounted, so did the tension. Christina found herself struggling to balance the demands of the project with her personal life. She missed the simplicity of her old life, the quiet evenings, the comfort of the restaurant's familiar routine. But as she stood at the helm of such an important venture, she couldn't help but wonder if she had sacrificed too much. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Jack invited Christina out for dinner to celebrate a successful deal. They went to a small, quiet restaurant, far from the glitz and glamour of the corporate world. As they sat across from each other, Jack seemed to be in a reflective mood. "You've done an incredible job, Christina," Jack said, his tone softer than usual. "But I know this isn't easy. I can see the pressure you're under. You're handling it all, but I can tell it's starting to take a toll. Christina looked down at her plate, her mind racing. She had been so focused on proving herself, on making sure Jack's faith in her was justified, that she hadn't stopped to think about what she was giving up. "I'm fine," she said, her voice steady. "I can handle it." Jack raised an eyebrow, clearly not convinced. "I know you can. But just remember, you don't have to do it alone. I'm here to support you, and I'm proud of everything you've accomplished." Christina smiled, grateful for his support, but a small part of her knew she had a long road ahead. She wasn't just leading a business expansion. She was leading her own life in a direction she had never imagined. And that, in itself, was both thrilling and terrifying. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them head on. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind for Christina. She had successfully navigated the initial stages of the Middle East expansion project, but now the pressure was mounting. She found herself working long hours, her mind constantly running through strategies and projections. The weight of her new role began to take its toll. She could feel the strain in her shoulders, the exhaustion creeping in, but she refused to show it. Jack had placed his trust in her, and she wasn't about to let him down. Every day, she woke up early, reviewed her notes, and headed to the office. The financial data, the contracts, the negotiations, it was all part of the game now. But every night, when she returned to her hotel room, she would take a moment to reflect. She had come so far from the quiet waitress she used to be. Now, she was managing one of the most ambitious international projects the company had ever seen. Jack had been her mentor, pushing her to new heights, but even his support couldn't ease the constant pressure. One evening, after another long day of meetings, Jack called her into his office. She entered, expecting another task, another project to tackle. But instead, she found him sitting behind his desk, his expression more serious than usual. "Christina," Jack began, his voice low, "I know you've been working tirelessly. You've been doing an incredible job, but I can see it's taking a toll on you." Christina stood in the doorway, hesitating. "I'm fine, Jack. Really I am. We're almost there. I just need to push through." He shook his head, standing up and walking toward her. "I understand the drive, but you can't keep running at this pace without burning out. I've seen it happen too many times before." She felt a pang of guilt. She didn't want to appear weak, but deep down, she knew he was right. The constant pressure, the long hours, the responsibility, it was all becoming overwhelming. Jack continued, "I'm not going to let you sacrifice your well-being for this project. You need a break, Christina. Take a few days off. I'll handle things here. You've earned it." Christina opened her mouth to protest, but Jack raised his hand. "No arguments. You're going to take a break. You can't give your best if you're running on empty." For the first time in weeks, Christina allowed herself to relax. She had been so focused on proving herself that she had neglected the most important thing, her health. She agreed to take a short break, something she hadn't done in months. Over the next few days, she spent time alone, away from the demands of work. She reconnected with her family, went for long walks, and allowed herself to breathe. The time away gave her perspective. She realized that she had been so consumed with work that she had lost touch with what truly mattered. The project, while important, wasn't the only thing that defined her. When she returned to the office, refreshed and reinvigorated, Jack noticed the change immediately. "You look different," he said, a genuine smile on his face. "I'm glad you took the time for yourself." Christina smiled back, feeling a sense of balance she hadn't experienced in months. "I'm ready to get back to it," she said, her voice steady and confident. Jack gave her a nod of approval. "Good. We're moving forward, and I need you at your best. Let's finish this." With renewed energy, Christina threw herself back into the project. The meetings, the negotiations, the long hours, they didn't seem as daunting now. She had learned the hard way that success didn't come at the cost of her well-being. She could still be the person she wanted to be, focused, determined, but also balanced. As the project moved forward, Christina's leadership became even more apparent. She wasn't just the one managing the day-to-day operations. She was driving the strategy, pushing the team to think creatively and take risks. And with each successful step, Jack's faith in her only grew stronger. One day, as Christina reviewed the latest project milestones, Jack called her into his office again. This time, his smile was broad. "Christina, We're doing it. The Middle East expansion is a success. I couldn't have asked for a better partner. She felt a rush of pride, the culmination of all her hard work. Thank you, Jack. I couldn't have done it without you. He leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. You've proven yourself, Christina. But more than that, you've shown me what true leadership looks like. I knew you had it in you from the start, but you've exceeded all expectations. You've changed the way I see business, and I'm proud to have you on the team. Christina's heart swelled with gratitude. This was the moment she had been working for, the moment she realized that she had not only earned Jack's respect, but her own. She wasn't just a waitress who had climbed the corporate ladder. She was a leader, someone who had carved out her own path, and was now helping shape the future of a global business. As the project reached its final stages, Christina knew that this was just the beginning. She had come so far, but there was still so much more to achieve. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them head-on. With Jack by her side and her newfound confidence, the possibilities were endless. As Christina continued to lead the Middle East expansion project, she found herself at the center of some of the most important decisions of her career. With Jack's trust firmly placed in her hands, she had moved from merely managing the daily operations to overseeing the long-term strategy of the entire initiative. The project was becoming a resounding success, and the numbers were speaking for themselves. Yet, amidst all the victories, Christina couldn't help but feel a gnawing sense of unease. The responsibility was enormous, and there were moments when the pressure threatened to overwhelm her. The stakes were high, and her every decision seemed to carry the weight of the entire company. One evening, after a particularly long and grueling day of meetings, Jack called her into his office. Christina hesitated for a moment before entering, wiping the exhaustion from her face. She had grown used to the late nights and the demanding work, but tonight felt different. When she walked into Jack's office, he was standing by the window, looking out at the city. For a brief moment, she wondered if he had been waiting for her. His demeanor was calm, but there was a quiet intensity about him that made her heart race. "Christina," he said, turning to face her, his voice softer than usual. "I know you've been under a lot of pressure lately. You've been carrying this project on your shoulders, and I want you to know that I see the effort you're putting in. But there's something I think you need to understand." Christina shifted uncomfortably, unsure of what was coming next. She had always known Jack to be straightforward, but tonight, there was a different edge to his tone. "What is it, Jack?" she asked, her voice steady, though she could feel the tension rising in her chest. Jack's gaze softened, and he took a step closer to her. "I've watched you grow over the past few months, and I've seen how you've transformed this project. But what I need you to realize is that you're not alone in this. I've been pushing you hard because I believe in you, but sometimes, even the strongest leaders need support. And it's okay to ask for help when the weight becomes too much to bear." Christina blinked, surprised by his words. She had always prided herself on her independence, on her ability to solve problems on her own. But hearing Jack say it out loud made her realize how much she had been shouldering alone. She had never asked for help, never admitted that she was struggling with the enormity of it all. She had always felt that she needed to prove herself, to show that she could handle everything without showing any weakness. "I've been pushing myself too hard," she admitted, her voice quiet. "I've been so focused on making sure everything goes perfectly that I haven't allowed myself the time to breathe. I didn't want to disappoint you, Jack." Jack smiled softly, the warmth in his eyes reassuring her. "You could never disappoint me, Christina. You've done more than anyone could have expected. But this project, this success, it's not just about you. It's about the team, the people around you who are here to help you succeed. You've earned the right to rely on others." Christina felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had always felt that she needed to do everything herself, but Jack's words were a reminder that leadership wasn't about shouldering every burden alone. It was about trusting those around you and knowing when to lean on them for support. "I've been so focused on proving myself that I forgot what true leadership looks like," she said, her voice softer now. "I've been so afraid of failing that I didn't allow myself the space to grow. But I see now that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to let others in." Jack nodded, his expression one of understanding. "Exactly. And you're doing a great job. You've already proven that you're more than capable of handling the responsibility. But that doesn't mean you have to do it all by yourself. You have a team who respects you, who believes in you. and they're here to help you every step of the way. The weight of the world seemed to lift from Christina's shoulders as she listened to Jack's words. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she could exhale. She wasn't alone in this. She didn't have to carry the burden by herself. She had earned the right to trust others, to lean on her team. Over the next few weeks, Christina took Jack's advice to heart. She began to delegate more, to rely on the talented team members around her, and it made all the difference. The project continued to thrive, and Christina found herself not only leading but also learning. She started to embrace the idea that leadership wasn't just about making the big decisions. It was also about empowering others to contribute their expertise and ideas. One evening, as Christina reviewed the latest reports, she received a message from Jack. It was simple, but it meant everything. "You're doing great, Christina. I'm proud of you." Reading those words, Christina felt a surge of pride. She had come so far, and she had learned so much. She wasn't just the waitress who had risen through the ranks. She was now a leader in her own right, someone who had the confidence to ask for help when needed and the wisdom to empower those around her. She had learned to trust herself and those who supported her, and that was the key to her success. As she closed her laptop for the night, Christina allowed herself a moment of peace. She had done it. She had faced the pressure, the challenges, and the doubts, and now she was stronger for it. The road ahead was still long, but she knew one thing for sure. She was ready for whatever came next. As Christina continued to lead the Middle East expansion project, the weight of her responsibilities began to grow even heavier. Despite the success of the project, things weren't slowing down. In fact, they were just getting started. Christina had taken on the role of managing multiple teams, overseeing high-level negotiations, and constantly thinking about the future of the company's growth. Every decision she made seemed to have far-reaching consequences, and while she was confident in her abilities, there were moments when the pressure felt almost suffocating. It wasn't that she was unsure of her decisions. It was the constant stream of them that left her feeling like she was juggling too many balls at once. Yet, despite everything, there was still something exhilarating about it all. The challenges pushed her to be better, to think more creatively, and to trust the people around her. She found herself working late into the night, reviewing reports, and coordinating with the teams on the ground in the Middle East. The time difference made things difficult, but she had learned to adapt. She was becoming more comfortable with her leadership, more assured in the choices she made. But something was missing. She could feel the distance between herself and the people who once felt like her support system. She had grown so immersed in the project that she had lost touch with the very relationships that had helped her get to this point. One night, Jack called her into his office. She hadn't expected it. It was nearly 9 p.m., and she had just finished a call with the team overseas. As she walked into his office, she saw him sitting behind his desk, his face serious but not unfriendly. "Christina," Jack said, his voice low, "you've been working nonstop. You've put in more hours than anyone I know, and it shows. But I think you need to take a step back and take care of yourself. I've noticed you've been distant lately. You're not checking in with the team as much as you used to, and I think that's starting to show in some of the work." Christina hesitated. She knew he was right. She had been so focused on the project's success that she had failed to maintain the connections that had once been her strength. The team had been supportive, but she hadn't been there for them the way she used to be. She had become so consumed with proving herself that she had neglected the very relationships that had made her successful in the first place. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Jack," she said quietly. "I've just been so caught up in the details of everything. I want this to work, I want to make it happen, and I guess I've lost sight of the bigger picture." Jack leaned back in his chair, his expression softening. "I get it. You're ambitious, and you've done an amazing job. But you can't do it all alone. That's the key to leadership, knowing when to lean on others and when to let them take the lead. The team is here to support you. They want to see you succeed, but they need your guidance, and they need to feel like you're still a part of the process." Christina nodded slowly, absorbing his words. "I know. I don't want to let anyone down. Especially not you." "You won't let anyone down," Jack reassured her. "But you need to trust the people around you. You've built a strong team. You've brought together the right people for the job. Let them help you." The weight of Jack's words settled in her chest. He was right. She couldn't keep carrying the burden on her own. The pressure she had been feeling was self-imposed. She had always believed that being the best meant doing everything herself, but she was starting to realize that true leadership was about collaboration, not isolation. "Thank you, Jack," Christina said, her voice firm. "I'll do better. I'll make sure the team feels involved, and I'll start trusting them more." Jack smiled, the warmth in his eyes reassuring her. "I knew you'd get it. You've got this, Christina. Just remember, the best leaders are the ones who know when to share the load." As Christina left Jack's office that night, she felt a sense of clarity that she hadn't felt in weeks. She knew what she had to do. She would reach out to her team, check in with them, and make sure they knew they were valued. The project wasn't just about her. It was about all of them working together toward a common goal. She would have to balance her ambition with the reality that she couldn't do everything alone. The next day, Christina held a meeting with her core team. She laid out the plans for the next phase of the project and asked for their input. She made sure to give everyone a chance to speak, to share their ideas and concerns. As the meeting went on, she felt the team's energy shift. They were engaged, excited, and ready to take on the next challenge. Christina realized that by opening up and allowing her team to take more ownership, she was strengthening the project in ways she hadn't anticipated. They were more than just employees. They were her partners, and together, they could achieve something even greater. As the days passed, Christina felt the weight of leadership become less daunting. She still had moments of doubt, of course, but with her team behind her, and with Jack's continued support, she felt like she was on the right path. The project was progressing, and her leadership was evolving. It wasn't just about getting the job done. It was about bringing people along with her. And for the first time in a long time, she truly felt like a leader. With each passing day, she grew more confident in herself and her ability to lead. She had found the balance between ambition and collaboration, and she knew that whatever came next, she was ready to face it head-on. The momentum Christina had gained from Jack's guidance and her own leadership continued to build as the Middle East expansion project reached its final stages. Christina's team was now fully invested in the process, and the collaboration had never been more seamless. The pressure was still there, of course, but it felt different now. She had learned how to manage it, how to work with her team instead of carrying everything on her own. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that she wasn't alone in this. However, as the final phase of the project loomed closer, Christina received an unexpected call that would change the course of everything. It was early one morning, and she was sitting in her office, reviewing final reports, when her phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar, but something about it made her pick up the call. "Hello, this is Christina Matthews." "Christina, it's Jack," came his voice, steady but with an undertone of urgency. "I need you to come to the office right away. There's something we need to discuss." Christina felt her heart skip a beat. The tone in Jack's voice was different from the usual professional calm he exuded. She quickly grabbed her things and headed out, her mind racing with possibilities. What could this be about? Had something gone wrong with the project? Was it something with the team? When she arrived at Jack's office, he was already there, waiting for her. He didn't greet her with his usual smile. Instead, his expression was serious. He motioned for her to sit down. "Christina, I've just gotten off the phone with our financial advisor. There's a situation we need to address. There's a potential threat to the entire project." Christina's heart sank. "What kind of threat?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's been a shift in the market, and one of our biggest investors is reconsidering their commitment to the project. They're threatening to pull out," Jack explained. "If that happens, it could derail everything. The entire expansion could collapse." Christina's mind raced. She had worked so hard on this project, and now it was all at risk. She felt a wave of panic rise in her chest. But she quickly reminded herself of what she had learned over the past months. She couldn't afford to panic now. "What do we need to do?" she asked, her voice firm despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "I need you to help me convince them to stay on board," Jack said. "We need someone who understands the financials and can present a solid case to them. You've been working closely with the numbers from the start. You know the details better than anyone else. This is your moment, Christina." The weight of his words hit her all at once. This was the moment. The culmination of everything she had done, everything she had learned. It wasn't just about leading a team anymore. It was about saving the entire project. Christina nodded, a sense of determination flooding her. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady. "I'll get them to stay." We've put too much into this for it to fall apart now. Jack gave her a brief, approving nod. I knew I could count on you. We'll be with you every step of the way. Christina left the office, her mind already working through strategies. She spent the next few hours preparing, analyzing the market shifts, going over the numbers with a fine-tooth comb. She knew the details inside and out, but this was different. She wasn't just presenting facts anymore. She had to sell the vision, show the investor that the project was still worth the risk. Later that evening, Christina sat across from the investor, a powerful businessman who had always been known for his tough stance. He listened to her presentation, his face unreadable. She had done everything she could to make her case. She had spoken about the potential returns, the stability of the project, and the long-term benefits. She had presented the numbers with clarity, but it felt like she was asking him to trust something intangible. She could see the hesitation in his eyes, the doubt that had crept in. After a long silence, he spoke. I'm still not convinced, he said, his voice calm but firm. The market is too unpredictable right now. We're not sure this is a risk worth taking. Christina felt her heart drop. This was it. She had one last chance. She took a deep breath and leaned forward. I understand your concerns, she said. But what I can promise you is that this project has been carefully planned, with foresight for every risk. We've mitigated the uncertainty, and we're positioned to succeed. I believe in this vision. No, I know this vision will succeed. We've come too far for this to fail, and I'm asking you to take this step with us. There was a long pause. Christina held her breath, waiting for his response. She had never been this vulnerable, this open with anyone before. But somehow, it felt like the only way to truly convince him. Finally, the investor spoke again, his voice slower this time. You're confident, I'll give you that. And I see the passion in your eyes. All right, I'll give you another chance. But this better work. Don't let me down. Christina exhaled, relief flooding her as she stood up and extended her hand. Thank you. You won't regret this. I won't let you down. As she walked out of the meeting, she couldn't help but feel a rush of triumph. She had done it. She had saved the project. She knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that she was stronger than she had ever been. She had faced her biggest challenge yet and come out on top. And now, there was no limit to what she could achieve. The success of securing the investor's commitment was a turning point for Christina. It wasn't just a victory for the project. It was a testament to how far she had come. The pressure, though, never stopped. Now that the funding was secured, it was time to move forward with full force, and Christina felt the weight of that responsibility more than ever. She spent days going over the logistics, ensuring that everything was aligned for the next phase. The Middle East expansion had become her life, and the stakes were high. With Jack by her side, guiding her and giving her the freedom to lead, she was feeling more confident than ever. But the realization that she was shaping the future of something massive didn't escape her. She had to get everything right. In the weeks that followed, Christina was in back-to-back meetings, coordinating with teams across the globe, and managing every detail down to the last decimal. It wasn't just the company's future at stake anymore, it was her own. As the pressure mounted, there were days when it felt like everything was slipping through her fingers, but she was resolute. She wasn't about to let anything, or anyone, hold her back now. One afternoon, Jack called Christina into his office. His tone was different this time, less urgent, but more reflective. Christina couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She had been doing everything she could to ensure the project ran smoothly, and now, it felt like something else was on the horizon. Christina, Jack said, looking up from the papers spread across his desk, I've been thinking about everything you've accomplished. You've been more than just a leader on this project. You've turned into someone who's starting to set the tone for this company. The decisions you've made have already changed the trajectory of our future. Christina stood there for a moment, unsure of where the conversation was headed. Thank you, Jack. But I'm just doing my job. We still have a lot to do. Jack smiled slightly, almost knowingly. You're being humble, but you've come a long way. I can see it. And that's why I want to offer you something more. Christina's heart skipped a beat. What did he mean by something more? Hadn't she already proven herself? Was this an opportunity to move even higher? What do you mean, Jack? He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. I'm offering you a senior executive role, a real seat at the table. I want you to lead the global expansion division, not just the Middle East. All of it. North America, Europe, Asia. This is going to be bigger than anything we've done so far, and I believe you're the person to drive it forward." Christina felt her breath catch in her throat. A senior executive role? She had always wanted to climb the corporate ladder, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. The implications of the offer were enormous. She had earned the trust of the company's leadership, but the responsibility that came with such a role was almost overwhelming. I don't know what to say, Jack," she finally managed. "This is a huge step. Are you sure I'm ready for this?" Jack's smile softened, and he stood up from behind his desk, walking toward her. "I wouldn't offer this to you if I didn't believe you were ready. You've proven time and time again that you have what it takes to lead. You've earned my trust. And more importantly, you've earned the trust of the team. You've shown that you can make tough decisions and see them through. That's what this role is about." Christina stood there in silence for a moment, letting Jack's words sink in. She had always dreamed of such an opportunity, but now that it was in front of her, it felt like a heavy decision. Could she handle this next chapter? Was she prepared to take on this new role and the immense responsibility it came with? "I'm honored, Jack," she said, her voice steady despite the swirl of emotions inside her. "And I'm ready. I'll take the role." Jack's face lit up with a pleased smile. "I knew you would. I'm looking forward to seeing where you'll take this company. The future is yours, Christina." As Christina walked out of Jack's office, her mind was racing. She had just taken on a leadership position that would shape not only her future but the company's as well. The weight of it was heavy, but at the same time, she felt more ready than ever. She had faced challenges before, but now, she was in a position to create change on a global scale. The first few days in her new role were a blur. Christina spent hours meeting with department heads, analyzing new markets, and revisiting the company's strategies. She quickly realized how much bigger the job was than she had anticipated, but she also knew that she was up for it. She had learned so much in the past year, about leadership, about herself, and about what it took to succeed in this fast-paced, ever-changing world of business. Every day, Christina grew more comfortable in her new position. She was making decisions that would affect the future of the company, and with each one, she felt a growing sense of pride. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but she had learned that the best leaders didn't shy away from challenges, they embraced them. As she sat in her new office, looking out over the city, Christina couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She had started as a waitress, unsure of her place in the world, and now she was leading the charge for a global expansion. It was surreal, but the truth was, she had earned this moment. She had worked for it, fought for it, and now, it was her time to lead. And no matter what came next, she was ready to face it head-on. As the days went by, Christina settled more comfortably into her new role. She was now the head of the Global Expansion Division, and her responsibilities had grown exponentially. What had once been a single project in the Middle East had blossomed into a worldwide initiative. Each day presented new challenges, new markets to navigate, new teams to manage. But Christina was no longer overwhelmed by it. She was empowered. She had built this from the ground up, and now it was her time to truly lead on a global stage. There were moments, of course, when she still doubted herself. The weight of her new responsibilities could feel crushing at times, especially when the stakes were so high. But Christina had learned not to fear those moments. She had learned that the pressure was a part of success, not an obstacle to it. Every decision, whether big or small, had an impact on the future of the company, and she was determined to make the right ones. One morning, as Christina walked into her office, she noticed a message from Jack. It wasn't unusual for him to send her a note, but this one stood out. "We need to talk," it said, with a sense of urgency. Christina felt a pang of concern. What could be so urgent? Was something going wrong with the global expansion? She quickly replied, "I'm on my way to your office." When she arrived, Jack was already there, looking unusually serious. He stood by the window, his gaze distant as if deep in thought. When he turned to face her, Christina noticed a certain tension in his posture. He had always been confident, almost unshakable, but today he looked like someone who was about to drop heavy news. "Christina," he began, his voice steady but with a hint of concern, "there's been a shift in the global market. A major competitor has entered our space, and they're making aggressive moves. I've been in meetings all day, and things are escalating quickly. I need you to take charge of this, but it's going to be tricky." Christina's mind immediately began to race. A new competitor? She had expected challenges, but nothing of this magnitude. She was already dealing with the intricacies of the global expansion. How could she also manage this threat? But she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't afford to be intimidated. "Give me the details," she said, her voice firm. "I'll handle it." Jack nodded, handing her a folder filled with reports and strategy outlines. "They're already making inroads in Europe and Asia, and they're trying to poach some of our clients. They have resources we didn't anticipate. You'll need to work closely with our partners, protect our current market share, and find a way to outmaneuver them." Christina scanned through the reports, absorbing the information. It wasn't going to be easy, but she had been in high-pressure situations before. This was just another challenge to face head-on. She set the folder down on the desk and met Jack's gaze. "We'll need a solid plan," she said, her tone determined. "I'll get in touch with the teams and start drafting a response strategy. We won't let them take our market." Jack gave a small, approving nod. "I knew I could count on you. This is going to be tough, but you're the right person for the job." As she left Jack's office, Christina felt the weight of the challenge ahead, but it was the kind of challenge that made her feel alive. She had already proven that she could handle whatever came her way, and this time would be no different. She wasn't going to let a competitor steal what she and her team had worked so hard to build. Over the next few days, Christina worked tirelessly to develop a strategy. She met with the teams in Europe and Asia, coordinated with the marketing and sales departments, and crafted a counteroffensive that would make their competition rethink their approach. The more she dove into the problem, the clearer it became that this wasn't just about protecting market share. It was about reinforcing the company's brand, ensuring that they didn't just survive, but thrived in the face of this new threat. One evening, after a particularly long day of brainstorming and strategizing, Christina sat back in her chair, looking out over the city skyline. The weight of the task ahead was still heavy, but she was no longer fazed by it. She had become the kind of leader who embraced the chaos, who found clarity in the storm. As she prepared for the final meeting with Jack and the rest of the leadership team, she felt a sense of calm. She knew the stakes were high, but she was ready to show them all that they could handle this, that they could come out on top. The next morning, Christina walked into the meeting room, papers in hand, ready to present her plan. As the team settled in, Jack looked at her and gave her a nod of encouragement. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for. Christina stood in front of the team and began her presentation, outlining her strategy to protect their markets and outmaneuver the competition. The plan was ambitious, but it was sound. By the end of the meeting, the team was on board, fully committed to executing her vision. After the meeting, Jack approached her with a look of admiration. "You've done it again, Christina. You've not only thought this through, but you've also brought everyone together. I'm proud of you." Christina felt a surge of pride, knowing that her efforts were making a difference. She wasn't just leading a division, she was shaping the company's future. And as she stood there, surrounded by her team, she realized that this was just another chapter in her journey, one where she was more than ready to rise to the challenge again and again. The global expansion project was now in full swing, and Christina felt a sense of pride every time she looked at the results. The markets were growing, the numbers were aligning with projections, and more importantly, her team was stronger than ever. She had become the leader she had always aspired to be, not just in terms of the work she was doing, but in how she was shaping the company's future. The once daunting responsibility had become a challenge that she welcomed every day. There were moments, of course, when the weight of everything still pressed on her, but she had learned how to manage the pressure, how to lean on her team, and how to trust in her own abilities. But success didn't come without sacrifices. The demands of her role had taken their toll on her personal life. The quiet moments she once spent with friends and family were becoming increasingly rare. Her nights were consumed with work, and even when she tried to disconnect, her mind would wander back to strategies, meetings, and financial projections. She hadn't realized how much she had withdrawn until one evening, as she sat at her desk, reviewing another report. The weight of isolation suddenly hit her. Despite everything she had accomplished, she had let the balance slip in her life. That evening, Jack called her. His voice was light, almost teasing, a stark contrast to the usual seriousness of their conversations. "Christina, how about a break? I know you're killing it with this project, but you need to step away for a little while. Let's grab dinner, just the two of us." No work talk, no numbers, just dinner. Christina hesitated for a moment. She knew Jack was right. She had spent so much time buried in her work that she had forgotten what it felt like to unwind, to connect with someone on a personal level. "You're right," she said, a small smile forming on her lips. "I think I could use a night off." They met at a quiet restaurant in the city, one of Jack's favorite spots. The moment Christina sat down, she could feel the tension in her shoulders start to melt away. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't thinking about the expansion, the teams, or the pressures of the job. It was just her and Jack, having a conversation that wasn't tied to business. Jack, always perceptive, noticed the change in her. "You've been working nonstop, haven't you?" Christina laughed softly, leaning back in her chair. "I guess I have. It's hard to step away sometimes, especially when things are going well. But I'm starting to realize that I've been neglecting the things that really matter." Jack gave her an understanding nod. "I know that feeling. It's easy to get caught up in it all, but sometimes we need to remind ourselves that success isn't just about the work. It's about finding that balance, connecting with the people who matter, and enjoying the small things." As they talked, Christina felt something shift inside her. She had spent so much time chasing success that she had forgotten what it felt like to live outside of work. She didn't need to be constantly striving for more. She could still be the successful leader she had become, while also enjoying the other parts of her life that brought her joy. The next few days, Christina made a conscious effort to reconnect with the world outside of her office. She spent time with her family, catching up on the moments she had missed. She reconnected with old friends, went for long walks in the park, and allowed herself to enjoy the simple pleasures she had once taken for granted. The balance was difficult at first. There were still times when she felt the pull of her responsibilities, but slowly, she learned how to manage both worlds without letting one consume the other. As the months passed, the expansion project continued to thrive, but so did Christina's personal life. She found the harmony she had been seeking, the ability to be a strong leader at work, while also nurturing the relationships that had always been her foundation. The sense of fulfillment that came from this balance was something she had never imagined. She was no longer just defined by her career. She had become the person she had always wanted to be, someone who could lead with confidence, but also take the time to enjoy life's precious moments. One evening, as Christina sat in her office looking out at the city skyline, she reflected on her journey. She had started as a waitress, unsure of her place in the world, and now she was leading one of the company's most successful global projects. It had been a long and challenging road, but every step had brought her closer to the person she was meant to become. And now, with the world at her feet, she was ready for whatever came next. Christina knew that there would always be challenges ahead. There would always be tough decisions, hard work, and long hours. But she also knew that she had the strength, the skills, and the support to handle them. She wasn't just the ambitious leader who had risen through the ranks. She was someone who had found her balance, her purpose, and her peace. And for the first time in a long time, she truly felt at home in her own life, ready to face whatever came next with open arms. This is a powerful story of resilience, ambition, and transformation that captures the journey of a waitress who rises to become a leader in a global business expansion. In this moving narrative, we follow Christina, a woman who faced adversity head-on and proved that hard work and determination could lead to success. Along the way, Christina learns valuable lessons about leadership, balancing career with personal life, and the importance of trusting others. As she navigates through the high-stakes world of business, she discovers her true potential and how to lead with both strength and compassion. These touching stories remind us that no matter where we start, we have the ability to change our lives and make an impact. As the story unfolds, Christina's struggles and victories resonate deeply with anyone who has faced challenges in their own life, making these touching stories even more meaningful. From the pressures of managing a global project to the moments of self-doubt, Christina's journey is an inspiring example of how embracing both vulnerability and leadership can lead to success. This is one of those touching stories that stay with you long after the journey ends, reminding us all of the power within to overcome any obstacle. Ultimately, Christina's transformation is proof that when we stay true to ourselves and push through adversity, anything is possible. This is the essence of touching stories, where the journey is just as important as the destination.